Okay, amazing. So we've got discursive. Right, so argumentative and discursive sort of connected, and we're going to start with understanding what the difference is, and then we're going to get into what each of them mean. This is just a random website, but we're going to follow through on our own notes, so no worries about that. Generally, what an argumentative essay is basically providing your because as the name suggests, you're arguing about something, so you are giving disagreement or expressing disagreement about a certain thing. And but when we're writing an argumentative essay, we don't just speak disagreement, we don't just give our disagreement, we don't just express our disagreement, but we give both for and against pointers. So the difference between argumentative and discursive is that when we have an argumentative essay, we need to make one side win. So for example, if the topic is coffee makes you caffeine is the worst addiction. So let's say I'm writing an argumentative about this particular topic, so I am going to give four pointers that yes, caffeine is the worst addiction, and then I'm going to give against pointers that no, caffeine is not the worst addiction. And then I am going to make one side win, which means that I'm going to give more for, or maybe going to give more against pointers in order to show that I the one side that is winning. So let's say if I've got three four pointers, that means three the four side is losing. If I've got four against pointers, that means the four against side is winning. Obviously, this will be more clear when we write it down and when we practice and we look at a sample, but that's the general idea that is behind it. And in the end, you also express your own opinion as to what you think. But not very vividly that I think, in my opinion. It's not like that. Generally, you just provide one for, one against, and then give a nice conclusion, which we will learn how to write. Two things that are very important in an argumentative, actually three things, is one, your thesis. Your thesis is basically dictating what you will be talking about throughout your essay. That's number one. Number two is always your pointers. So what side are you giving more pointers for? Because that side is basically winning, so you need to make sure that all of your pointers are legitimate. And then we've got number three, which is basically your conclusion, because in the conclusion a lot of people express their own opinion, which turns out to be the actual problem within the whole essay. So basically this is basically how what you follow through in an argumentative. You select a topic, you give your thesis. Again, your thesis is something which explains in a sentence, it explains what you will be talking about. You provide arguments, and then you give counter arguments. What are counter arguments? So let's say if I'm giving arguments for a topic, counter arguments are basically against that topic. So, in short, a well written essay will have a compelling topic introduction to engage the readers. Now, this includes your thesis. Then they have a fair analysis on both sides of the argument. This includes your arguments and your counter arguments. And then they will persuade the reader to consider new, different perspective. Now, this is your conclusion, where you are not exactly expressing your point of view, but you are, in some sense, expressing which side is right. And that should convince the reader that okay, you know what, they've got a point. So it should be compelling enough for the reader to not to maybe not to think that oh my god, that side is right, but just to think that okay, they have a point as well. So let's say they've given us a topic. So how to they're talking about, because you have always have a choice, so they're talking about how will you decide if it's the right topic, what topic you actually want to go with. So first topic is sport is not just good for exercise, it teaches us lessons about values and behavior. Do you agree? Give reasons and examples to support your view. Now when you are writing this, let's say if I am writing this in a practical sense, forgetting about this text right now, forgetting about this website right now, in a practical sense, I am going to think, okay, for is it not just good for exam? Maybe I am for this pointer, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. Sport is, sport teaches us teamwork, it teaches us dedication, and teaches us competitiveness, it teaches us a lot of more things. And compared to, let's say, question two is we should always obey rules both inside and outside school. There is never an excuse of breaking them. Now, what is your opinion? Give reasons. an example to support your opinion. So again, you might be for this. If you're against this, you can say that there are some circumstances where the school might be wrong. If the school is asking you to not share your food, that might be wrong, and you are against it. And maybe you want the reader to believe that no, my point of view has some sense as well, right? So you will always need to think about what your stance is, because only according to that you can give legitimate examples. So if you do not support the first statement, you will never be able to formulate four pointers for it. So you need to make sure that you are either against or for the statement that has been given. Are we clear till here? Is it making sense till here?
Yes.
Perfect. So now they're actually giving you a guide which you should follow, which you will copy paste, and we will write up in our own sense as well when we're writing our examples and samples. But basically, they're saying that once you read the choices that have been given to you, the first one is that you read both of them and you underline. And then the second one is like I just said, you decide your own stance. What do you think? Do you think that you're for it, against it? Because on those bases only you will be able to write as much as they need you to write, or you'll be able to write legitimate arguments. So they're saying that you make a brief mind map, which is basically you just thinking in your head, what is it, am I for it, am I against it, what would be my four pointers, what would be my against pointers. Then you select the topic that you find more interesting, which basically means that the one you have better arguments for. So if I were the person, I would definitely go with question number one, because I have my pointers really, really clear in my head right now. I made my mind map and I was like, okay, you know what? This is something I can actually write and seems interesting to me. Uh, Right. Format for the argumentative. Again, we have a five paragraph thing. You have your introduction, you have your body paragraphs. However, over here, your body paragraphs are not about storytelling like our narrative. They are descriptive. They are actually about arguments and counter arguments. So you need to make sure that you are, let's say if you're for a topic, you will give four arguments for two paragraphs, and then you will give one paragraph of counter arguments, which means that you want to show that one of the arguments is winning. If you're against a topic, you're going to give one for paragraph and you're going to give two against paragraphs. And then you provide your conclusion. Introduction needs to require your thesis, conclusion needs to be compelling enough. Right. So part one of your introduction is hooking the reader, which is grabbing their attention. I, as a person, would not be interested in reading about this. I do not want to know anybody else's opinion. Let's say I'm a very, very, very stubborn examiner and you really need to convince me, and I'm already bored looking at the topic. So you need to make sure that your first statement is something that is keeping them off their ground. It's keeping them awake, it's keeping them hooked. Then the second part is always your background information, that okay, this is what I'll be talking about and this is what my thing is about. And then part three is your thesis. In very, very simple sentences or sentence, your thesis is the conclusion of your first paragraph. Like you have a conclusion of all your five paragraphs and your essay, your thesis is the conclusion of your first paragraph. Are we clear till here?
A little bit, yeah. Can you kind of give like a little example for
Yeah, yeah,
the,
for sure.
yeah.
So let's say I go back to the topic of the sports thing, right? So where is it? Sports is not just good for exercise, it teaches us lessons and values and behavior. Do you agree? Give reasons and examples to support your view. So my introduction will go something about, um, maybe I'll ask a rhetorical question, or I can go and say, do you know how many types of sports there are in the world? Right, so that will hook you no matter what. That will hook the examiner, because maybe they are excited to know how many there are, but that's a rhetorical question, I don't really need to answer it. So I'll be like, and then I can just say plenty, and each of them teaches us more than just good, each of them gives us more than just good health, or each of them gives us more than just a good stamina. They teach us, etc, etc, etc. They teach us teamwork, they teach us dedication, competitiveness, etc. However, all of these things can also take a wrong turn at some point, because obviously I have to give the against of this as well, which, or I can say, however, some people might believe that it is only good for exercise and building stamina, or just or we can say some people might believe that it is just a form of exercise and nothing beyond that. Now this is basically my introduction, where I've given the first hook, then I've given that I'll be talking about for and against. Now I have to give my thesis. So my thesis will be my conclusion of the first paragraph. So I need to make sure that it's summarizing my whole thing. So I can say, while while most of the population in the world view sports as being valuable, there are some who do not believe in its importance. There you go. So I have given in a sentence that yes, I will be talking about the people who think that sports is valuable, but then I will also be talking about the people who do not think it's important at all. Is it making sense now,
Yes.
right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Much clearer. Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
No worries. Right. So now there are, now because we have this huge burden of making sure that our introduction has a hook, that our introduction is interesting. So for because of this burden, we need to make sure that we have a few ways in order to solve it. So the first one is that you can throw up questions, like I just did. I can just throw up a rhetorical question. Uh, just sorry, yeah. Right, yeah. So I can throw up a rhetorical question like I just did. Any of the questions you can, just ask your, as if you're talking to an audience. You can just write one question which you can answer throughout your essay as well. So it can just be a question like, do you think sports is valuable? Do you think sports provides you more than just good exercise? It could be just that. And throughout the essay, you're basically writing the answer. So it can be a Q&A that you formulate for yourself, and it will also be a hook. So that's the easiest way, and it will also keep you on track. Then the second one is that you state a fact. So 99% of the people in the world think that sports is more than an exercise. There you go. That's a fact. So you can target humor, you can target emotions, whatever you want to. Um, right. So they've given us an example. So for example, the first line of the topic is a university degree enough to get a job? Do you know that graduates still out earn people without degrees? So now they've given us a fact. Right. Now the second thing that you're doing in your introduction is your background information. Sorry, just let me just reload it. Yeah, so you're giving your background information. um, right, so this will help your reader understand what the topic is all about. Plus this information will also explain the main keyword as well. Now what is the main keyword? If I go back, I don't know why, but my cursor is like weird for some reason. Let me just, right, the main keyword in my topic, which has been given to me over here, is basically values and behaviors. This is my main keyword because this is something I have to explain. What do you mean? What do I mean by values and behavior? What is my opinion on values and behavior? Sport is another keyword. My topic will revolve around these three things: values, behavior, sport. So this is my keyword. So they're saying that once your background information is explaining your keywords, so the reader needs to understand what your topic is about. So this is the background of your introduction. So like I gave the background of my introduction, that some people think this but others it. So that's something like that. Or you can just say that sports is one of the most the different kinds of sports are one of the most entertaining thing, etc., etc. Any background information regarding that particular topic. Once we write, it'll be clearer. When you are done with these two parts, move on to the third and the most important part of the introduction, which is the thesis statement. In simple words, this statement lets your reader know about your viewpoint about the topic. Now this is exactly what I mean. This is your viewpoint about the topic, what your view
I'm
is.
sorry to cut you off. I just had one more question.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is this is the steps of the introduction or just the whole
This is the
essay?
steps of the introduction.
Okay,
Of the
understood.
introduction. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So right. So getting back to the thesis, this statement lets your reader know about your viewpoint. Now you cannot, however, even though it is letting your readers know about your viewpoint, you cannot be clear about that. You cannot state in my opinion or I think. So when I talked about my thesis, I said while most people think, there are some. So I sort of in hidden words did give away the fact that because I have given away the fact that most people, or I can say so that basically explains that most people is me for going for this topic, that yes, sports is more than just that. So you have to make sure that your viewpoint is solid. And that basically means that you are giving it in such a sense that you're not saying in my opinion or my what I think is. You're just making a statement that also makes your viewpoint clear indirectly, which I will teach you how to do. Do not worry. Right. So it has to be one or two liner. It does not have to be a paragraph. Your thesis should be crystal clear. So you need to make sure that it's perfect. It's really, really clear. Um, right. That's the introduction. Now the question. Now they've given us an example. So the question says, the student who study abroad achieve greater success. Do you agree or disagree? Give reasons for your answer. So this is just a sample of the introduction, not the whole essay. So this kid, he started by saying, do you know that US students studying abroad during 2018 to 2019 increased by 1.6%? But does that mean studying abroad promises great achievement? So he presented a rhetorical question, which basically means nobody is going to answer that question, but he's just thrown away that question. Obviously, the examiner is not in front of them that he's going to answer. So, this, or that's so what he's going to do is he's going to answer this question himself throughout the essay. So his question, he has made the question, but does that mean studying abroad promises greater achievement? So he has hooked the readers, and he has presented a question which he will eventually answer. Now he's giving the background, which is, for years many students are interested in studying abroad as it helps them to have an understanding of the world, learn new languages, overcome challenges of living in another place, and appreciate the cultures. Now what has he done in the background? He has given us one reason as to why people would study abroad or prefer studying abroad. Then he says, to be precise, America's first study abroad program was launched in 1923. Another fact. That's just background information. Now he has said, this thesis statement, in my opinion, the students who study abroad achieve greater success because they develop their skills in a better way than those who do not study abroad. Now this basically, in my opinion, is something that he is presenting his opinion, but something I do not suggest at all. Because what happens is that your whole essay becomes really, really, really biased. Okay, so until and unless you learn the whole format and you are sure what to write in an argumentative, I will not suggest writing in my opinion, because once you have presented your opinion, the examiner will always view it as a very biased essay, because you are likely to just talk about your opinion more than anything else. So that's one thing why I would say do not use in my opinion, but people still use it, which you can, but after you've gotten enough practice. So again, you have three body paragraphs, or one or two counter arguments that are basically against your topic. And then they're saying you should also have a typical paragraph with a top that contains a topic sentence. So you need to remember um, your topic sentence format for a paragraph. They're also talking about an inverted pyramid technique. This is something I can explain to you, but it's not exactly, actually this is something I'll explain to you when I'm writing it. Right. So the concluding paragraph. Now this is the important part. So your last paragraph should restate your thesis. What does that mean? The thesis, where you summarized everything and you presented your point of view, that should be restated, not in the sense ki wapis you write the whole thing, you just copy paste. No, restated in the sense that you reiterate it. So you write it in separate different words, but it is the same idea that is being presented in
You
different
kind of
words.
go back to it, right? A little bit.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you basically show that, there you go, I showed you what's right. That you say that, but in very humble terms. That's your conclusion for for an argumentative essay, that what I said in my thesis, I showed you that throughout my essay. Here you go, now I'm done. So it's like that, but in a very humble sense. We sound really aggressive like this. Right. So okay, before we I get to this in, I need to stop sharing here. I am going to go back to our Google Doc. Also, the topics that I had given you, I did see that you had done the topics. I think two of them. But I want you to just recheck for spelling errors. That was one thing I want you to do before I check them.
Okay. Okay. Got it. And will you be sending me the argumentative and discussions a
So once
document?
we're
Or... Yeah. Go
once
ahead.
we're done with right now, I'm making a new document. Yes,
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
sharing it and sending it to you as well. But once we're done with argumentative, I'm also going to put down narrative, argumentatives, and descriptives on that document where I share the letters and everything.
Okay, understood. Yeah.
So we have, right, just give me one sec. Right, sorry. Right. So we are looking at the format. And I've summarized the whole thing for you in easier words. Step to follow include mind map and planning. This is very, 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 very important. Even even in papers where, let's say, God forbid, you do not have time, they do check your planning and give you marks. So always just put your planning down there. Just make some pointers, put your planning like we were doing in the narratives. So this is a general format that you follow. We're gonna look at a sample, and then we're gonna move ahead and write our own sample. It's gonna be difficult for me to read this person's sample, but it's a CI given sample, so we should. Right. So we've got section 2 where he is choosing to write one he had to choose. So he is writing young people. I think he's writing that. Wait, let me just check. Wait. Question 3. Wait. Okay, no. Just a second. Which one's the argumentative topic? I think it's this one. Right. Young people today have no interest in politics. Do you agree? Now, this is basically what he's writing about. He or she is writing about. They have to agree or disagree. Again, the topic is young people today have no interest in politics. Right. So this is a grade A response that they got, and the response was, in the current modern era of the 21st century, societies have advanced and people have organized into different motions. Now, this is a fact that he's given, hence the hook of his introduction. Democracy has spread far and wide, and dictatorships have been toppled down by people. Again, this is background that he's giving. Now, this is not related directly to his opinion, but this is something that is happening within the society and relates to the topic. Politics have Politics has become an ever growing phenomena that people have and continue to debate over in most of the well known news channels such as Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, and etc. We sorry, see people talking about politics, and most of these people are either middle aged or seniors. Just give me one sec. Sorry, yeah. Right, so he's still giving the background. He's not moving ahead of topic. Just look at that. He's still talking about the background only, talking about how there's news channels where they talk about politics, and whoever does, they're still middle-aged people only. So then he's giving this thesis where he's saying, in short, younger people are not taking interest in politics today. Now, in short, now, he did not say his opinion, but he did give a statement which is most definitely his opinion because he is going to prove it. That is his thesis. So he just goes ahead and he says, in short, younger people are not taking interest in politics today. Very simple, very plain, moves ahead. Then he talks about the first paragraph where, let's say, how many arguments he gives. It is evident that the youth around the world are very busy and engrossed in their personal matters which include studies, relationships, so socializing, etc. The schedules of these people, young people, are always full and they have to do a lot of things every day. There is no time to for them to think about or take an interest in the field of politics. A study by a group of, now this is a fact that he's giving, a study by a group of researchers from the University of New York has shown that a whopping 70% of youngsters in the state of New York do not even visit the news channels, let alone other channels, specially dedicated to the discussion of politics. Now, over here, he has given two four pointers. The first one is where he's saying that it is evident that they are engrossed in their own personal lives where they have a lot of things to do. The second one is where he's talking about the study. These are two four pointers that he's given. Now he's going ahead and giving another four pointer. Apart from that, youngsters tend to think about that politics is only meant to be for adults and not for them. This is evident from the fact that youngsters observe that the news channels, their parents watch only the elder people discussing, etc., etc. Youngsters have a mindset that they are only supposed to watch channels that are related to studies and entertainment, and leave the news channels to their parents. Another point of Another two pointers, I would say, because he's given an example as to what they actually watch, and he's talked about that they are not interested because they think that it's for adults. So he has given you roundabout of three and a half four pointers, which means that he is for the topic because he has given more arguments for that, and he has taken two paragraphs to explain four pointers. So when I go back to my format that I've written for you, so I have said that either it could be para 1 of arguments, which is basically for, and 2 and 3 can be counter arguments, which is against, or it could be para 1 and 2, which is a para stands for paragraph, so it could be paragraph 1 and 2 for arguments, which is for, and then just 3 for our counter arguments. That's what he's done. He's followed the second pattern where he's giving two paragraphs dedicated to four arguments. Now he's talking about the third one. He's actually divided them even further, but generally there has to be just five paragraphs. As a result of the youngsters hardly know about politics and the changes that are taking place to the nation around the world, many youngsters might find politics is boring compared to the, again he's giving us more four pointers. Parents also hardly ever tell their children anything related to politics. They are of the opinion that the children should not be concerned with politics but rather concentrate more on their studies to excel in the future. Therefore, whenever an election takes place again, he's given a good example. Election takes place in a particular country, we find that majority of the votes are from people who are 35 years old and above. Some people might put forward the argument that youth do not take interest in politics as they have some youth organizations that take part. So now he's talking about against. So he's talking about organizations that do take part in these uh, in politics. They do have rallies, they do have unions to speak in the interest of youth, to voice their opinion. So now he's talking about that again, that when you go back to the topic, so if I go back to the topic was young people have no interest in politics. So he gave four pointers for two paragraphs, and now he's giving the against pointer, which basically he's saying that they do have interest in politics. So to which he's saying that there are still rallies, there are still youth who are coming out to voice their own opinion, and that's his counter argument. So he's just dedicated one paragraph to that, which means that his own point of view was for. Then he's talking about the conclusion where he's saying, in conclusion, youngsters as a whole have no interest in politics. Youngsters should know more about politics as they are the ones that will replace the older generation. So he has given one pointer for, one pointer against, in the sense not for or against, but he's given one pointer for one side and the other pointer for the other side. So one pointer that he's given for one side is basically that they have no interest in politics, and the other pointer that he's given is that they should have interest in politics. And then they're saying, and they will be responsible for the running of the nation in the years to come, where he has basically restated his thesis. He got a 27 out of 30. Why? So they're saying that the essay is a response to question 2 and argues strongly that people have little interest in politics. The content is mature and sensible. There's a very good sense of balance as the essay neatly raises the opposite view in the uh, penultimate paragraph, and yet the reader is always aware of the candidate's real opinion. Now, this is exactly what I mean. That even though he did present his counter argument, but that doesn't change. We still knew that he still supports the argument that was presented in the question. So, just because he was presenting a counter argument did not make us feel like that, oh my god, did he change the whole side? It did not make us feel like that. We still knew that he's on that side because he had so strongly presented that argument that his counter argument was just a part of the essay, nothing else. The essay ends strongly, but by urging the need for change. It does that without hectoring, so without saying anything that, oh my god, go for change, but it still reiterates that there is a need for change. um, Overall, the language is highly accurate with occasional slips. The sentence structure has some variations, etc., etc. So they've given us a nice detailed point of view. Um, Now, one thing that I want to clarify over here. Now, this particular thing, young people today have no interest in politics. Do you agree? Now, this is something you can actually take as a discursive essay. This is not necessarily an argumentative essay. However, it is okay because you sort of follow the same format. Now, for this, what one thing for this is actually discursive. Why? Because you do not have two sides given, so there's just one side given. You can take it as both things, you just have to follow through, but technically this is discursive. So now I'm going to go back to the document and I'm going to explain what's the difference, the smallest difference between discursive and argumentative. And that, because we are going to take them both side by side and it's nothing that is very different. So again, in discursive you have same intro. Now your body paras are different in the sense that you have to make sure that, let's say if you're giving 2 4, so you should go for, let's say 2 4 then 1 against. But this shouldn't, basically this shouldn't give a side away, so it's better to go with 6 paragraphs and then you should go with your conclusion. Now why is this? So in discursive you do not pick a side, neither do you implement that you are choosing a side. That is the only difference. So you will try to make sure, so you have over here, give equal pointers for and against. So you maybe you can just go with 3 paragraphs only, 3 body paragraphs, but you need to make sure that you're giving equal pointers for for. So let's say if I'm giving 2 pointers for for, I will also give 2 pointers for against. You will not make a side win. That is the only difference. With argumentative, you can make a side win. Make sense?
Yes, makes sense.
Right. Um, okay. Just a second. Let me see if they had a marking E response. This is narrative. You can actually also, I am sharing this with you because this has all the responses. I'm putting it here only in the document. If you want to read it for the narrative and the letter and the report and everything, you can do it. So they've got all levels of responses. And let me see if this one has one for, yeah, this is all narrative. Right, yeah. So this has a lot of examples that the Cambridge has provided. You can just look through at this for other topics as well. Right, so coming back to our thing. So for now, we understand the format and we understand what's the difference between discursive and argumentative. I am going to stop here because I don't want to information dump on you. I don't want an information dump on you. But next class, writing next class agenda, Asfira will give a sample and explain, which is basically I will write it. And then Alia will start learning how to write intros with valid pieces. Make sense?
Yes, makes sense. So tomorrow our sociology class will be at 3, right?
Tomorrow our sociology class will be at what time have I given you?
3?
Have I 3? Is it 3? No, I think
Yeah.
it's 4.
It's written 3 in the time, but 4 is fine as well.
Yeah, so basic, wait, I'll just share my screen once again. Wait, let me just stop this.